Beloved or beloathed, Apple made a Mac in 2013 that was quite unique, to say the least. While some people thought that it was a really nice design and that it looked really cool, some people thought it was absolute trash. Literally. So before the video begins, I want to let you guys know that I've got a community post up with some feedback that I need from you guys. I need some questions for an AI-based video that I need to do. And no, it's not going to be anything about storing your data or anything. It's actually checking the accuracy of different AI chatbots and seeing how good and how realistic their claims are. So I need some questions. So head over to that community post or post a comment in this video with your questions. Questions can be either long form or short form, such as a how-to question, or they can be just a simple fact of matter question. I need 50 of each, and right now I've got 3 on each category. So if we get those questions in, that'd be greatly appreciated, because then I could test these AIs and I could get your guys' involvement with it too. So how accurate are those AI chatbots? Well, we're gonna find out. But for now, back to the video. The 2013 Mac Pro was a very unique computer, and it was one that, honestly, I flip and love. I think the design of this thing is awesome, and I wish that they'd bring it back in some form. I love it, but I'm not a pro, so my opinion doesn't matter. So the 2013 Mac Pro was a big departure over what existed prior. And when I mean existed prior, I mean what had existed for 9 years prior. For a bit of history, we had something called the Power Mac G5. This released in 2003, and this introduced a case known as the cheese grater. Now, the cheese grater Mac Pro and the Power Mac G5 was a very popular design. The G5 was the first iteration of it, and it had issues that the G5 or that the Power Mac fixed. But the G5 itself was a really nice computer, and it felt really premium. It worked really well for pros. And then the Mac Pro then evolved and made it into what it was. From the 1,1 Mac Pro, which was the 2006 model, all the way up to the 5,1, which was the 2010-2012 model. These Macs were honestly just incredible for getting work done. The 2013 Mac Pro was called the Trash Can Mac Pro. This is what came after the 2012. Apple was very upset with the community, I feel, at least initially, when they unveiled this product, because at that time, a lot of people said that Apple couldn't innovate. Phil Schiller went on stage and unveiled this Mac with the iconic saying,
"Can't innovate anymore, my..."
However, that iconic quote didn't really make a good impression. So the 2013 Mac Pro got rid of the iconic cheese grater design and put it inside of a case like this. It's got a bunch of ports on the back. You can see right here, we've got USB, Thunderbolt, a ton of Thunderbolt, a headphone jack, and an audio in port, dual Ethernet ports, HDMI, power, and you have your power button, obviously. But the only issue with these is that these weren't without compromise. If you're going to make something that's this small, you're gonna have a lot of compromises, and unfortunately these did. While you can open these guys up, there's a little switch right here, and you can just pop off the lid. So you can see we've got the RAM here. There's actually RAM on 2 sides of this thing. I'm gonna turn it around. So yep, RAM right here as well. You've got your SSD, and the CPU, while it is upgradable, it's a pain in the butt to get to, so it's not something that a lot of people did. It's facing backwards, so then the cooling system can then push air through the system to actually cool the thing. The GPUs that were in this thing were not upgradable in the sense that the older Mac Pros were, and this is probably completely on wrong. Yeah, these Mac Pros had a choice of 3 GPUs custom made by AMD. You had the AMD FirePro D300, D500, and the FirePro D700. And those were your 3 choices. You could not install anything else. There were no NVIDIA options or anything. You couldn't install them. So with that being the case, a lot of pros were really upset by this thing because Apple expected you to use Thunderbolt on the back here. You can see how many Thunderbolt ports they put on this. They expected you to use Thunderbolt for all of your tasks and basically live the dongle life before it even existed by using external hard drives and all this other stuff that you couldn't put internally inside the computer. This thing was basically the Mac Studio before the Mac Studio existed and before it was proposed, except it replaced the Mac Pro, which was a big no-no at the time. It's different than how it is nowadays. You have the Mac Pro, and then you have the Mac Studio. They sit alongside each other. If this was called the Mac Studio, back when it had come out, and wasn't the same price as the Mac Pro, I would have imagined that this would have done a lot better on the market, especially because this is basically a Mac Studio. It's not. It's a different computer shape as well. So it's not a Mac Studio, but you could kind of say it kind of was one, because it had the same kind of philosophy where this device was intended to be used just kind of as is. You upgraded if you needed to, but didn't need to. It was perfectly fine the way it was, and that you would be happy with it forever, because that's how computers work. Alright, anyways, enough dogging on this thing. I genuinely love this thing, as I mentioned earlier in the video. I think that the design of this is very unique, very different, but I love it. It's kind of like the G4 Cube in a way, but that also failed horrendously, so I'm not exactly sure why Apple thought this wouldn't. But this put a massive damper in the Pro market, as we will get to later. But for me personally, I love this thing. I think it's a beautiful design. I love the trash can and the color that it is, with this glossy metal finish, with the bottom of it just saying Mac Pro. It looks gorgeous, and I think that this, if they had done this right, and had lined it up alongside a Mac Pro, and not made this a Mac Pro in and of itself, it would have been a beautiful computer. But yeah, I plan to use this thing as my main Intel machine once macOS Tahoe comes out. I'll be patching it on here. Hopefully it's possible. We can do Sequoia, so I would imagine that Tahoe is also perfectly capable on this thing. But this will be my main machine for Intel, so this will probably just run Tahoe forever. But that's the awesome part about these machines, and why I would suggest picking one up nowadays, because they're powerful, they're not very expensive anymore, and you can easily patch newer macOS operating system on them, along with install really old ones, and I'll get to that now. So these Mac Pros natively support up to macOS 12 Monterey. They are the oldest Mac to be able to support macOS Monterey, as macOS Monterey required a 2014 Mac Mini. It required 2015 MacBooks of basically any kind. There were no 2014 machines supported other than the Mac Mini. And I think that's it, actually, because you had the 2016 MacBook, which was a requirement. 2015 didn't even support Monterey. You had the 2015 MacBook Pro and MacBook Air. You had the 2015 iMac, not the early one, but it had to be the late one, which is stupid. And then you had the 2014 Mac Mini, which was supported and honestly shouldn't have been, because it was dog crap slow, especially because that released with 4 gigs of RAM and a 500 gig hard drive. But anyways, the other side of that coin is you have the 2013 Mac Pro, and this Mac Pro is a 3rd gen processor, and it ran Monterey beautifully. I mean, it's a Mac Pro. It makes sense that it would run it well. But yeah, Monterey was as far as it went on these things, and Monterey was the last version of macOS to not require AVX2. Now, due to the community, we've actually gotten macOS Ventura, Sonoma, Sequoia, and Tahoe running on these older machines, because people have reverse engineered Rosetta and made that work, which is phenomenally amazing that people managed to do that. And I'm hopeful that Tahoe will run on this thing, because I think liquid glass on this machine, I don't know what it is about it, but I think it would look amazing. But yeah, these machines can run up to macOS 12 natively. So these machines got Monterey, Big Sur, Catalina, Mojave, High Sierra, Sierra, El Capitan, Yosemite, and Mavericks. He's got 9 versions of macOS. And the amazing part is that these Mac Pros are one of the few devices to get multiple macOS design languages. You have the skeuomorphic design with macOS Mavericks. Granted, it was the latest design of skeuomorphism, so it was missing some of the earlier macOS skeuomorphic designs, like especially some of the ones found in Mountain Lion and Lion. But Mavericks was still perfectly fine for them. It got the flat design with OS X Yosemite up to Catalina, and then it got the iOS-esque design, is what I like to call it, with Big Sur and Monterey. There are a few Macs that actually do branch all 3 of these design languages, but there's not that many, and none of them can run Monterey. So those machines got those design languages, but they only ran up to Big Sur. They couldn't natively run Monterey. This is the only Mac that can run Monterey and Mavericks, and can run them on the same drive. Now, I don't have Mavericks installed on mine because I have an OWC NVMe SSD in this thing. That's how it came when I bought it.
And unfortunately, since that's NVMe, you need macOS High Sierra or later to even use it. So in order for me to use Mavericks on this machine, I need to either change out the SSD to an Apple official one. I need to go in and just install on like an external drive or something like that. Or I have to buy a kit to put 2 SSDs in this so I can have both the Mavericks SSD and then the big one that's in here, the 1 terabyte that I plan to actually use. So yeah, that's a bit of an unfortunate reality with that, but that is what it is with these older machines. But yeah, these things have quite the specs. 128 gig of RAM maximum. These have Intel Xeons in them because they're Mac Pros, and they are a 3rd gen Xeon. There were a bunch of different ones you can get, I think from all the way down to 6 cores to 12 cores. This is a 10 core. And as I mentioned earlier, you can put the D300, D500, and D700 GPUs in these machines. That's what they came with. This is a D700 model. So this is one of the best ones. But yeah, this thing's almost fully spec'd out. It's got maximum RAM, it's got the highest graphics. The CPU is just below the CPU is just below the highest. It is a 10 core Xeon, not the 12 core. So I might upgrade that in the future, and that would be a video if I decided to do that. And it's got a 1 terabyte SSD, which is not really the maximum. There's not really a maximum for this. And these machines not only can run macOS, but you can install Linux on them. Although I think that these have some issues because of their dual graphics. And you can install Windows on these, which again, dual graphics. So while Windows is better about it, and there are modded AMD drivers you can get, it still is, macOS is probably one of the best options for one of these machines. Without further ado, let's go to the computer and get this guy hooked up. Let's go to the computer, the one that's sitting right here. Without further ado, let's go to the monitor and get this guy hooked up. So here we are using the Mac Pro. And you can see here, we've got the desktop right here. And you can see right here, got the Mac Pro in the About This Mac screen with the AMD FirePro D700, 10 core Intel Xeon. This is a custom upgrade from the looks of it, and 128 gigs of DDR3. And how does this machine run? Well, I mean, it's a pro machine, so amazingly, I've had no issues using this computer just as a day-to-day machine. Now, Monterey is old, so unfortunately, given that, it just is gonna be old. You can see here, YouTube runs just fine. I've had no issues. I can go pretty much anywhere and I'll have no issues at all. Yeah, it's a little out of date. Safari 17 is the last version that runs on Monterey, which is the version that came out with macOS Sonoma. So it's a couple versions out of date, but it's not too bad. And macOS Monterey itself doesn't look very old at all. It has the iOS design that came out with these machines. So it's just old on the front of, you can't run Final Cut Pro 11, you can't run Logic Pro 11, those require Ventura, and at this point probably Sonoma, but regardless, you can't install the latest versions, without patches anyways. Now these Mac Pros will run macOS Sequoia. We don't have macOS Tahoe support yet, but I'm sure that these machines will be able to run that. So if I go to the Patcher website here, go to GitHub, you can see, once it loads, here's our release, and yeah, this is for macOS 15.5, but if I look through their compatibility list, which I think they have a list somewhere here. So right here, you can see the 2013 Mac Pro it's actually not listed in here, but actually that's a typo, 2018 Mac Pro. Yeah, you can see the 2013 Mac Pro is in here. In fact, it goes all the way back to the 3.1 Mac Pro, so that's pretty cool. There's a lot of typos, I'm just realizing. Anyways, but yeah, given that, this seems to work perfectly fine with it. So I haven't tried Sequoia. I don't plan to. I'm going to wait for macOS Tahoe to come out, which it has, but I'm going to wait for them to finish updating their Tahoe stuff before I go that route. This computer has a 1 terabyte SSD installed, so right now I've got Monterey on here, 100 gigs for that. I got 150 gigs for High Sierra. This is the 32-bit partition, so I'll be able to run my 32-bit apps straight through High Sierra with no issues. So I'm excited to do that. And macOS Tahoe, which has the rest of the 700 gigs, so that'll be used for that. There's not a whole lot to say with this machine. I mean, it's just a Mac running macOS Monterey. It's very similar to any other Mac that you'd be running Monterey on. But once macOS Tahoe comes out, I'll be making a video on that. I'm excited to get this machine up and running with Tahoe, because Tahoe has the liquid glass design. This does have Metal 2 capable graphics. It's the oldest machine to have Metal 2, from what I can gather anyways. So liquid glass and stuff will be perfectly fine on this machine. I don't see any issues with that. But yeah, would I suggest you get a 2013 Mac Pro in 2025? Well, given the prices that they are,
it might be useful to you. These machines can run Windows 8, they can run Windows 10, you can force them to run Windows 11, so these will still be viable PCs afterwards, and they're not a slouch. The dual GPUs are not great in Windows, especially because you need modded drivers to make them work properly. We don't really use dual GPUs anymore. We've always just kind of stuck with one, so applications have always kind of supported that. macOS does a good job of balancing the two GPUs, but even then, it's still a dead format. And even when macOS Monterey was the latest OS, dual GPUs just wasn't super common. Even on this machine here, if I go to the About This Mac, go to the System Report and go to Graphics and Displays, you can see it's got the two here, and macOS supports this perfectly fine. I don't know how much macOS will actually use both GPUs. The better model to get is the one with the D700 because that has the best single GPU performance. But yeah, with that being said, that's about it for this video. If you liked it, then give it a like and get subscribed if you like the content that you see on this channel. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye. So some of you may have noticed I canceled my YouTube memberships, and that's just because there wasn't a whole lot going on with them, and I didn't really want to charge people for something I wasn't really maintaining. So yeah, nothing to worry about.